Welcome to Member Spotlight, presented by Community Broadband Action Network. I'm Curtis Dean, and today we're going to shine the spotlight on one of our great provider members located in primarily in Northwest Iowa, but growing and expanding their service area. This is Ryan Boone, and he is the CEO of Premier Communications. Ryan, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, Curtis. Looking forward to the conversation this morning.
I've known Ryan and his father, his predecessor at the CEO position, and the team at Premier for, well, really since my first days in broadband in the late 1990s. You guys have always been a major presence in the broadband space in Iowa, real leaders across the nation when it comes to independent broadband providers. So great to have you as members, of course. Thanks for doing that, and thanks for coming on. Just talk a little bit, first of all, just kind of introduce Premier Communications to the rest of the group. Tell them about who you are, where you are, what you do, service area, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so believe it or not, but Premier was originally formed in 1906, so well over 100 years ago, as Mutual Telephone Company of Sioux Center, Iowa. So that's still 100 plus years later, our parent organization. So we've kind of, as an organization, at least seen it all, from the days of party line, telephone, going to underground buried from aerial, the old switching platforms to digital switches, and then the fantastic dial-up service now to DSL, and now what we see is fiber-based internet service. So we've kind of seen it all, experienced it all, and hopefully, like you said, been on a little bit of the cutting edge in terms of a lot of those developments. I do think it's interesting. We provide service kind of in that northwest corner, like you mentioned, starting again over a century ago, just in Sioux Center, Iowa. But now our service territory kind of covers, I would say, just north of Sioux City, all the way to the Minnesota border, to the South Dakota border, and then over to what we call the Iowa Lakes region, or the Okoboji Spirit Lakes. So you kind of fill that gap in for the most part, and a good chunk of that is Premier Communications.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about that growth, because you know, like a lot of very successful independent telecommunications companies, you started as a little telephone company. And grew over the years. That growth was not necessarily rapid at the beginning, was it? When did the Premier brand be attached to your services, and when did you guys start to expand beyond that original Sioux Center telephone exchange?
Yeah, so as some of your listeners might know, for the first probably almost 80 to 90 years of our existence, our ability, or a communications provider's ability to expand, was really limited, because of regulations and the laws in place at the time. So, we had divestiture in the 83, 84 time frame, and then kind of this competitive or the laws changing to allow for more competition than late 90s, I think it was around 96. And so that's really what kind of started our growth, was in more the mid to late 90s. And what ended up happening was, we had some opportunities where maybe some other smaller providers, typically in our case, it was kind of these mom and pop cable providers, and we would purchase a community here or there, and just expand our territory, kind of, just this edge out philosophy. And so we were able to make some smaller acquisitions and continue to just kind of edge out, and really have to credit, I'd say, my two predecessors. So a lot of people recognize the name Ross Vernon. So Ross was the general manager for 50 plus years at Mutual, and then Premier. And then you mentioned my father, Doug, who became CEO in 2002, and was a CEO for 20 years then. And so you think about Premier Communications. I think one of the neat things for our company is we are actually a shareholder-owned company. We are not family-owned. We're not a cooperative. So we are shareholder-owned. But for the most part, over our century plus of existence, I'm only the third CEO and
Mhm.
our general manager. And so there's been just a lot of consistency. And like you've said, or kind of kicked this off, it hasn't, the growth hasn't been rapid. It's just kind of been this consistent growth. And that's really been our approach all along is we look at our existence and our ability to serve and provide service throughout Northwest Iowa. And this isn't a sprint for us. This is a marathon. And we really just kind of look at that slow and steady as you go. And over time, that all kind of adds up. And we do that very intentionally because we know that one of our main and core tenets is being a local provider. And we don't want to lose that. And sometimes if you grow too quickly and expand too far or too fast, you can tend to lose the local feel. You can tend to lose kind of who you are at your core, and we're trying to be really cognizant not to do that.
That's an excellent point. We see the industry is littered at the roadside of the litter is littered with companies that tried to grow too fast and
Mhm.
basically got out over their skis and either were acquired or had to retrench, had difficulties, and that smart growth, that organic growth, it seems like the most sustainable way to do it. And certainly, that's the approach that you guys have taken. Another approach you've taken is taking advantage where available of resources for grants and whatnot to grow your network and bring fiber to more people. So,
Mhm.
talk about the process you've gone through here in the state of Iowa with the various Iowa broadband grant programs that have been released over the past few years.
Yeah, so Iowa's been really at the forefront of the grant process, and give a lot of credit to formerly known as the OCIO, now Dom Dewitt, and we've gone through 8 different grant funding opportunities at this point, and I think Premier's been a participant and successful in I think 6 of the 8, and 2 of them we just 2 of the grant opportunities there weren't opportunities for us at that time, so we didn't even try. But yeah, participating in roughly 6 of them, we've been able to expand into a lot of rural areas, utilizing some of those grant funds. All the way from, I think initially some of the grants were closer to 20 to 40% to some of the more recent ones have been 60 to 75% grant funding. And so we've kind of looked at just always this edge out opportunity, and how do we serve areas that are currently unserved or underserved, and hopefully do so by taking Premier size and the economies of scale that kind of come with that, and do it at a economical cost, I guess. So we still have this mindset that everybody has the right to a good broadband service. And it shouldn't matter whether or where you live necessarily. And so we try to put our money where our mouth is when it comes to that. But there is a limit, obviously, and that's where the grants kind of come in. So
Absolutely.
we've just, I'll just say, during the COVID time frame, really kind of saw this kind of firsthand, where we really tried to not just serve the towns, but serve the rural areas, where we kind of look at like the school district, right? We want a student, whether they live in the middle of town or whether they live on a farm at the edge of the district, to have the same opportunity to do their homework at home, watch their virtual classes or whatever it may be. And we saw that come to life and during the COVID timeframe. I mean, there was definitely haves and have nots depending on where you lived, but we were very happy that in our territory there wasn't that divide.
One of the things I think is great about Premier is you guys have been very interested in and willing to engage in partnerships.
Mhm.
And you've had some great partnerships with some local governments. I know you've worked with a couple of counties in your area to take advantage of some county funding to edge out. You've also partnered with other providers to serve new areas. Webster City is another C-band community member where you're partnering to do that. When you look at getting into a partnership, what kind of things do you look for in your partners to do these broadband build outs and serve people?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It all kind of starts, with where is there a broadband need, right? First of all, in an area, whether it be a community or the rural area. If we're working with counties or the county board of supervisors, or when you get into a community with the mayors and the city councils and the utility departments. So is there a need is kind of the first one. And the second piece to a lot of that is there a willingness by the community or the board of supervisors to partner? And that's where we've found, there is different communities or different counties have different viewpoints on that. And what we've kind of seen is there needs to be a willingness on both sides if it's going to work. And when that willingness occurs on both sides, it can be a really special thing. So you mentioned the city of Webster City, which had a very interesting opportunity to work with the city and kind of provide this opportunity to make a $20+ million investment in their community in the surrounding rural area. And over the course of really 2 years, Premier, along with its partner Webster Calhoun, overbuilt the entire community with fiber.
Mhm.
And it was probably the fastest build we've ever done. I would say for both Premier and Webster Calhoun. And now the community is 100% fibered. And we've had a lot of success in attaining getting customers to sign up and have some great reviews and customer testimonials because of that. But it was in partnership with the city. I mean, we needed to be able to get into the right of ways and get the appropriate permits, and that doesn't happen unless there's a desire for better broadband service. And so that's really kind of the crux of it is there a willingness from the community or the county, and do they see the value in having this local broadband provider that, again, is going to be there for the long haul. We hired 5 local people, 5 Webster
Mhm.
City residents, and we lease an office right in downtown. We've made donations to their Lyft organization and to the schools and to all those different things. I mean, we are truly local, and I hope that the community sees that, and for future opportunities or other communities that may be listening to this, this is the type of partnership you get when you engage with someone who's in it for the long run and
Yeah.
has a desire to be local.
I think one of the challenges for community leaders is they are so accustomed to the relationship between community leadership and, say, the public sector or the private sector broadband
Mhm.
providers as being adversarial,
Yep.
because they're dealing with large companies who really aren't focused on serving communities. And I know when I'm talking to communities all the time, I say, you have to keep an open mind, because not every broadband provider is cut from the same cloth.
Right.
And the local providers, like the people that companies that are C-band provider members, are cut from a different cloth, and they are people that actually do care about the community. And so maybe bring your guard down a little bit.
Yep.
Yes, you still need to exercise due diligence when you're working with a provider, and all of that, and make sure that the provider that is you're talking to has a strong reputation and has a strong record of putting their money where their mouth is, so to speak. But let's put it this way: big cable has ruined it, made it much harder for little guys to establish good relationships because they've created this adversarial wall that has to be torn down first.
Yeah, I think, I mean, one of the things that we say on our end, we've been around for a century, like, right?
Yep.
So the decisions we're making or trying to make are decisions for the next century. The decisions we make aren't for a quarterly earnings report. We're honestly, a lot of decisions we make don't make sense when you look at it quarter by quarter. It's only when you measure it over years and decades that a lot of our investments make sense. And I think that's where, for Premier and for our partners with communities, that's the big difference, is we are truly looking long term and looking ahead in that way. And I think the other thing, we really have a lot of fun working with communities on how do we do economic development together. And we look at what we do as being a huge driver for business growth. If it's a new industrial park going in, or just a spec building, we'll put fiber to that spec building before the entire building is ready to go. That's just the way we do it. In Webster City, we had the opportunity to help facilitate and bring in Debbie Durham to have a conversation with other city leaders and just talk about what's the next step for Webster City. And that was a fun conversation. But we're able to leverage and use some of the relationships we've developed and bring those to communities if they may not have those same relationships. And that's honestly, that's the fun part, is to figure out how we can help grow together.
Well, that's the philosophy that I think is the key. And one of the reasons that we started C-Band is we wanted communities especially to know that there are providers out there that will care about your community. And so if you're frustrated with your current situation, don't give up and think my community, my residents will have to live with this kind of thing forever. There are potential opportunities there. Does it work for everyone, right? We know that not every community is in a position that they're going to be able to find a company like you. But don't give up hope and write this off as a lost cause, because there are opportunities there. As we wrap up here, Ryan, I just want to, I always ask our guests on Member Spotlight to, shine up your crystal ball and look into it. What do you see? What are some of the biggest challenges you see facing Premier and the industry in general as we are moving forward now into a new era of BEAD and beyond?
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest challenges that we have is, I'm continuously challenged with continuing to grow Premier and to do so, like we talked about, in a smart way, in that kind of marathon mindset. And one of our challenges is, where's that next growth come from? So if you're a community listening to this, I'll put my plug out there. Don't hesitate to reach out to me or to us. We're always interested in what those opportunities could look like. So that's one of our big challenges. I think the other one, Curtis, you mentioned BEAD, and I think a challenge for our industry and just the country in general is making sure that those BEAD dollars go to areas that truly need them. And we could have a whole nother chat on mapping and how, the maps have gotten a lot better, but they're not perfect,
Right.
So, my hope for that whole process is just that, they go to the right areas that truly need it. And that we're able to figure out some of this red tape stuff that we're dealing with on the BEAD side.
That's been the biggest concern among a lot of industry people that I know, is that the only people that are going to be capable of handling the administrative lift to do BEAD, the BEAD round of grants, are the companies that are big and have teams of lawyers and whatnot. And they're the people that are going to be the citizens are going to be less well served by those than smaller companies. So anything that can be done to modify that so that companies like Premier and even smaller companies, I've talked to other small C-band members that are, your typical very small locally owned cooperative or mutual or whatever, and they're like, I don't know how I can do this.
Yeah.
And so that's the challenge. There've been, not to rail against big telecom, but I do it all the time anyway. But letting those folks go back to the trough when they've been at the trough for years and have never shown results for it really bothers me. But I have a feeling that they're going to be at the trough again, and I believe that they're going to probably get a lot of the feed out of that trough. So, and of course, since Sioux Center in Northwest Iowa is one of the greatest cattle raising areas of the world, using the trough analogy probably appropriate.
Right. Yeah, we do have probably just as more livestock than we do people up here at times.
Yeah.
But that's
There's
where
a lot of steak on 4 legs wandering around.
Connected too.
Yep, absolutely. Well, you guys have served a huge role in lifting the economy of that area. So hats off to you, bringing broadband to to the farms where intelligence and telecommunications connectivity is needed to do smart farming. Way to go. Appreciate having you on today and everything that you guys do.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Curtis. This was a lot of fun. So I appreciate the opportunity to share a little about Premier's story.
Excellent. And we will see you down the road. I assume you'll be at the Fiber Broadband regional event in Des Moines, and I'll be there, and we'll probably run into you in the hallway somewhere.
All right. No, that sounds fantastic. Thanks, Curtis.
Great. Our guest today has been Ryan Boone. He's with Premier Communications based in Northwest Iowa, one of our great C-band provider members. And today, our guest on C-band's Member Spotlight. Thanks for joining us.